Lesson 2, Abraham. And this week we are looking at chapter 15, which mainly we're talking about covenant. We're not studying covenant. There's a whole course on covenant. So we're just going to get little pieces of it, but because it's pretty critical with the covenant that God made with Abraham. That's okay, Ron. Now I've identified who you are. Yeah. So, chapter 15. How does that verse 1 start?
After these things.
After these things. So what's the question?
After what things?
After what things? After what things? So what happened? We started looking at this book in into chapter 11 and chapter 12. What happened there? What was that all about? If you have your at a glance chart, you can look at how you titled this, and that will help you.
After all this carting around and going down to Egypt and coming back and getting the altars right, after all that stuff.
Okay, so after all that stuff, and all that happened in 12, 13 and 14. Okay. So in 12, God made this promise to Abraham, right? He made a promise to Abraham. What was the promise involving?
His name.
Okay, he'll make his name great.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Curse those who curse you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sands of the sea.
Yeah.
Okay. And through him, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Okay. All right. And then in 13, you have Abraham and Lot. What happened with them?
They're separated.
They separated. Okay, they separated because they both had too many possessions, and so they separated, and Lot chose where he wanted to go. Okay, and then in 14, what happened with Lot?
He was captured.
Yeah, remember 14 was all the wars, and Lot was captured in the end, and then Abraham went after him
Right.
and brought him back, and then Abraham was met by Melchizedek. And he tithed to Melchizedek. So we talked about Melchizedek. So that brings us to chapter 15. So in verse 1, let's look at that whole verse. What is happening in verse 1? He has a vision. Okay? And who's responsible for that vision? God. Okay, it says that the Lord came to Abraham in a vision, and what does he say?
Don't be afraid.
Fear not.
I am your shield.
I am your shield.
And your great reward.
I am your shield, and your reward will be very great. Okay. Had God been Abraham's shield previously to this? And if so, where? What has happened in his life where God was his shield?
In Egypt.
In Egypt. Okay. What about in Egypt? What happened there?
Well, his life was spared.
Okay. His life, yeah. His life was spared by Pharaoh.
His wife was spared.
And his wife was spared,
Yeah.
and his life was spared. Okay, so God was his shield. And then there was another time.
When he went out, he didn't go out with a lot of men after those people. So God was his shield.
Right. So that's chapter 14, where Abraham,
The right thing to do.
yes, he went out with what, 318 men
Yeah,
and defeated. And so God, again, was his shield in that battle. And now he says to him, fear not, fear not. I am your shield, okay? Have you ever been fearful and forget that God is your shield?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably so, but it's good to remember that God he has our back, right? And he's got Abraham's back, and he's going to have Abraham's back for his whole life, as well as ours. So this is going to be important because what's the next thing he says? He says, fear not, your reward will be great. What is Abraham's response to that statement? Your reward will be great. In verses 2 through 8. What's his response?
He has no
Well, how can
offspring.
that happen? I have no offspring.
Yeah. So he's asking God a question. How is that going to happen? I don't have any offspring. So what do you see in 2 through 8 about Abraham's response to his question? I have no offspring. And what does Abraham propose?
Somebody from the household. Yeah, a member of my household.
Yeah, a member of my household will be my heir. Okay. We are in chapter 15. We are after chapter 12 when God made this promise to Abraham that he would have descendants, remember? And that through him all the nations of the earth will be blessed. This was in 12. Then he went to Egypt. Then he came back from Egypt. Then he went after Lot. So this is now God just saying to him, no.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, remember what I said. So now how does God make it clear?
He brings them outside.
Okay. So he takes him outside. Go back to verse 4, first of all.
It says, no, the guy from your household isn't gonna, your very own son will be your
Yeah,
heir.
your very own son will be your heir. Yeah. You can't get any clearer than that, right? Yeah, right. Right. And then he takes him outside and shows him what? The stars. And this is how many descendants you will have. And then verse 6, what does Abraham do? He believed. Okay, he believed. And it was counted to him as what? As righteousness. This is an important verse because we're going to be looking at this a little bit later in the lesson, right? He believed God now. When he asked the question and God said, here, this is what it's going to be. And then he asked the second question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when he counted it to him as righteousness, it wasn't so much that he believed there'd be a baby, but he was believing that God would fulfill his promises. So that is that sense of within his heart.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that God was a God who would, God was sovereign.
Yeah.
So that's why it's righteousness. It's
Right.
not just because, oh, I'm going to get a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beyond the fact that he was going to have a child. Now he's believing God. He's believing God.
Sort of.
What?
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. For now.
At that moment.
Yeah, at
Best
that
I
moment.
can, right at the moment.
At that moment. Okay, well, are you like Abraham?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Don't make this personal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry for making it personal. However, that's why we're here, to make it personal. Mary.
The one question I really have after reading this is the difference between his vision and then going in like the deep sleep. There's a part where, what's the difference between his vision and then Abram falling in a deep sleep and having these?
Okay, let's move on then, because you're mentioning this deep sleep, because that's going to segue us right into the next question. What's the second question that Abraham asked God?
How am I to know I'm gonna possess it? How shall I know?
Yeah, how will I know? How will I know?
How will I know?
How will I know? And then what is God's response to that? How will I know? And he says,
Get it, Whitney?
what?
Has him bring like an offering.
Right, he has them bring what?
Ram, turtle dove, young pigeon.
Goat, ram,
heifer.
turtle dove.
Okay. He just went to the market and got those? Yeah, that's always funny to me. And then he brought this heifer and he brought this ram and he brought this, yeah. Of course, he did have a lot of possessions, but what did he do with those animals? What is happening here?
He's making an altar.
What's that, Heather?
Sacrifice.
Okay.
He's preparing a sacrifice.
Okay, what specifically did he do? This is important.
Cut them in half
Okay, he
and
cut them in half.
except the bird.
Yeah. Cut them in half and he laid them, okay, side by side, okay? Now,
Over against the other.
yeah. Now, what happened here? What happened? Tell me what's going on here.
Well, then he fell into the deep sleep
Okay.
like she talked about.
Okay, so then he falls into this deep sleep. See, After he's cut the animals in half. And then, as the sun was going down, Abraham, a darkness fell upon him. And then the Lord spoke to him.
Kind of some bad news there.
Bad news?
Sad news.
Sad news. Part of it is sad news, yes. But, so God spoke to him first in a vision, in verse 1. And then when he's going to speak to him again, it says a darkness fell upon him.
Through the night, too?
What's that?
Is it night?
Well, it says as the sun was going.
As the sun was going down, so
The
it's
sun
not,
was going down.
it's not totally dark, it's dusk, but a darkness fell upon Abraham.
It feels very awesome.
How is it awesome?
Well, just the awe of, he's alone with the sacrifices that he's made,
Mm-hmm.
and it's him and God.
And he's in a place where he's going to be able to hear God. Yeah,
Well, I was just wondering if it says a dreadful and darkness fell upon him, kind of setting a little darker, sadder tone, because then after that, the Lord reveals what's going to happen to his descendants,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
They're going to be servants, they're going to be afflicted for
Yeah.
400 years, you know, so kind of, I don't know,
right.
like I said,
It's
setting
not
the tone for
the best
that.
news.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Mary, I really can't answer your question well as to what's the difference. I don't know that there is a difference between the sleep and the darkness, but he's definitely not in a fully, I don't want to say fully awake, because he is fully awake because he's hearing God both times. But without me looking that up, I don't want to really,
I guess I was trying to decipher, like, pull apart the transition between the vision when he physically, I think it had to do when he made the sacrifice, because he physically did that, right? That wasn't part
he
of the
did,
vision.
he physically did that, right,
And then he went in that sleep. I was just curious.
yeah. Because out of that vision, then he asked the questions, and then he got the animals, and then he cut them in half. Yeah, fully awake. And then once he did, prepared the animals and laid them side by side, and then the sun was going down, and a deep sleep fell on Abraham. And then God talks to him. God talks to him. So, good question. I'll try to remember to do some research on that, but the point is, God is speaking to him clearly here. And what is he? And Betty, you alluded to this. The message was. Oh, she's just eating her peach now. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. What was the message to Abraham?
His offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs. There'll be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years.
Okay.
And there's a but on the next one.
Yeah. But.
A little
Yeah.
hope here.
But. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have any offspring right now. You're going to have a son. You're going to have descendants as many as the stars, but they're all going to be in slavery for 400 years. Good news. Yeah. But. What will he do?
God will bring judgment on the nation that they serve.
Okay. And
They will come out with great possessions.
they will come out with great possessions. All right. So let's talk about this. What happened in that moment? What passed through the animals? What passed through the animals?
Smoking fire.
Okay. The smoking pot and the fire. Okay. And then in verse 18 it says, on that day, God made a covenant with who?
Abram.
Okay, with Abram. So God makes this covenant with Abram. With Abram. And what was the covenant?
I give you this land.
Give you the land. And does he tell him what land it is?
Yeah, he's real specific about the boundaries.
Yeah. So did you look at your map? to see those boundaries, those rivers? Okay. So he identifies, this is the land that I'm going to give to your descendants. Okay, so he's promised him descendants, right? And in this covenant and the promise he made with him in chapter 12, he said, through you, right? Through you what? All nations blessed. So this is all future, right? Through you, all the nations will be blessed.
I think he says to him too, you're gonna die in peace.
Yeah, you're going to die in peace. Hi, Jeannie. Yeah, no problem.
No worries.
No problem. So all these promises, but he made a covenant. This is the Abrahamic covenant. Okay, because we're going to talk about 3 covenants, but this one he made with Abraham.
This is,
And did Abraham walk through the pieces? No.
but this one,
Just God walked through the pieces. So God made it with Abraham. It was,
so you think God walked through those pieces because of the smoking pot and the torch? Why do you think God did?
okay, because of the smoking pot. Yes. Because it says, okay, because it says, when the sun had gone down and it was dark, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch passed between the pieces. And that's how you made a covenant. You walked between the pieces of an animal cut in half. And who walked through them?
God.
The smoking pot and the flame representing God. Because it says, then, on that day, the Lord made a covenant. So immediately following the smoking pot walking through the pieces, it says, on that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. So is God going to go back on any of this?
No.
No. No, he can't. He can't. All right, look at, on page 16 of your homework, the references from Exodus. I want you to tell me, how was part of this promise in 15 fulfilled in Exodus?
Well, 3:21, it said the Egyptians will be favorably disposed toward this people so that you will not leave empty-handed. So then he went on to say, tell them to ask the neighbors for articles of gold and silver, for the Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards them. So
Okay,
So verse 14, chapter 15, verse 14, you're gonna come out with great possessions.
okay. You will come out with great possessions. Okay, and how did that happen?
They plundered.
They plundered the Egyptians, okay? Now, there's a whole background to that, right? But when they came out of Egypt, they took a lot with them. The Egyptians gave them these possessions.
You know, I always think of possessions as somehow bad if we're too into possessions.
Oh, yeah.
And it keeps saying about possessions, you know, that Abraham left with a lot of possessions and they had to split up him and Lot because they both had a lot of
Yeah.
possessions.
Because it's Xbox and all of these things that he had in his truck, yeah.
And they plundered, they were allowed to plunder the Egyptians so they would have possessions. So it is a way of God blessing you, I guess. I don't know.
I guess, what
But
did they,
it's not
it's
so
kind
bad.
of a mixed bag since those possessions ended up getting them in trouble later on. I mean, where
Actually-
did that calf get made from?
I know, but also they used those possessions to build the tabernacle.
Yes.
There's-
right,
So both.
right.
They gave
Right.
willingly, from a willing, and
Right.
I kept thinking, where
Much-
did they get this stuff? They got it.
They got it right here when they
God
left
gave
Egypt,
it
so.
to them.
But that's going to take us into the book of Exodus, which we're going to be studying
What?
in January. In January,
Oh.
okay. So we're going to kind of move along here, but, yeah, so Nancy, yeah, possessions, what does it say? Silver and gold and, you know, and clothes and, right, things that they would need. Basically, because they'd been in slavery how long? 400 years, so what do they have? Nothing. So the fulfillment of what God told Abraham here is that when they come out of Egypt, the Egyptians will give them all the Xboxes that they need, all of the, yeah, all of that they need. Okay, all right. So, what did you put as a title for chapter 15? How would you describe this chapter?
God makes a covenant with Abraham.
Covenant with Abraham. God makes covenant with Abraham. Mhm.
What did you put?
Lord made covenant.
Oh, yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Abraham believed. I put Abraham believed / Lord made covenant. Do you understand why we do that? Why we make these chapter titles on this page?
Remind ourselves of the
And
snapshot.
when you write it in your Bible and you're supposed to be finding some story and you
Yeah.
can't find it,
Mhm.
That's
it's
it.
Yeah.
easier finding.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so that you're going to remember what's in that chapter, okay? And when you look at this, you kind of walk through this book in your mind. It's like the story is building, and you'll be able to go with it. So it's important that you do this, because it's going to build the story for you and give you a reminder of what's happening in those chapters. So I put Abraham believed, the Lord made a covenant. Okay? Very simple, very simple. What's in that chapter? Very simple. Okay, we're talking about covenant. What is covenant? What is covenant?
Promise.
Actually, in your homework, I think on the first page, it's just in some notes. We didn't look it up, but it describes, I think maybe page 13,
Yeah.
okay, in the notes. How does it define covenant?
I did 3 things. It is used between nations,
Mhm.
it's between individuals, and it's between God and man.
Okay. Between nations, between individuals, and between God and man. Okay. Which kind is this?
God and man.
God and man. Okay. What does the word covenant
Then
mean?
what's the difference between individuals and God and man? Because I would have said this is with Abraham, this is with an individual.
Right. Only in this covenant, God is the only one
Yeah.
who made it. Okay. Okay. When we talk about this next one, okay, which we're going to do right now. So your question?
So I would have said that this is one that was made, oh, sorry.
Okay.
When I read between individuals, I was thinking of God and individuals, not between person to person.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
All set.
Okay.
When persons do it, it's usually, I think a promise is different from my business law days, you talk about a contract, there was a promise, but in return for that, there was consideration. He just made a one-way promise. This isn't dependent on anything that you do. This is me making an enforceable promise on for
Right.
me to make an enforceable promise, there has to be consideration. I have to get something in return.
Yeah. So God made the covenant with no strings attached. Right? It's unconditional. Mary?
Well, God also, he required a sacrifice, from my understanding in the Old Testament.
Okay. Well, the animals had to be sacrificed in order to make the covenant, right? Right.
But the New Testament, obviously, Jesus is the
Right.
sacrifice for the New Testament.
Yeah. See, this is the thing with covenant. I mean, it goes from right here all the way to Jesus dying on the cross. Okay, and that's what if we're studying the book, if we were studying the course, covenant, we would go through every bit of that. But you're right. You see, you're seeing what's happening. It's a foreshadowing. Exactly.
Now, by Abram, did he not participate in the covenant by offering the sacrifice and by being counted as righteous because he believed God?
He did not make the covenant.
He didn't,
Okay.
but he participated,
He's the receiver of the
Beneficiary.
covenant, okay? He's the receiver of the covenant. He did nothing. See, what's the covenant for? He made it with Abraham is to give his descendants the land. Abraham can do nothing about that. is to give him the descendants as many as the stars. And that one from his own body, his son, will be his heir. Okay? And it's that all through him all nations will be blessed. Abraham did not agree to do, he didn't make the covenant. This is what God is giving to Abraham. Abraham is the recipient of the Abrahamic covenant, which extends to all of his descendants. Okay? I think it'll be helpful if we move to the next covenant, because you're going to see then where it's with men, and there are conditions. Okay? So we're talking now about the law or the old covenant. So in Exodus 24, on page 16 and 17, we want to grab some facts about the law, this covenant. Exodus 24. Exodus 20 is, and it's in your notes, I think. Exodus 20 is when the Ten Commandments are identified. Okay. And Moses is the mediator of this covenant. God gives them to Moses, and Moses gives them to the people, right? Now, in Exodus 24, what does Moses do? With all the people, they're all there. What's happening?
Well, he builds an altar and makes sacrifices, and he takes half of the blood and puts it in basins, and the other half he threw against the altar. And then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people, and they agreed to
Okay.
obey it.
Okay.
And then he took the blood and sprinkled it on the people. Threw
Okay.
it on them.
Okay. So who is this covenant between? Okay, God and who?
All the people.
Yeah, and all of Israel, all the people, right? So is there a participation by the people in this covenant?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Okay. What did they agree to do?
to obey.
Everything? Right. Everything. How silly of them. Yes, right. Everything. Moses said, here's what God said, boom, 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 boom. And they all said, we will obey. And then the blood of the covenant, right, sprinkled on the people and on the altar. So, you see the difference between this one and this one? Abraham did not make that covenant. He received it. These people, they said, yes, we will. There's a difference there, okay?
Did all those people, when they're sprinkling that blood on people, so when they're walking around, they said, well, where were you today? What, you got all that blood? I mean, are their clothes just like, you can see it? I don't get that.
I would guess.
Blood-borne pathogens.
Gosh, okay,
So,
all right.
but so they actually had on their being
He
evidence
sprinkled
that
it,
they had been.
it says he sprinkled it on the people, on the people. Okay.
Sprinkle, that.
Sprinkled, okay, so the point is here, they participated in that covenant, right?
So it wasn't done until they said yes.
They said yes. When they said yes, then the blood is what makes the covenant, okay? And so the people, in essence, are walking through the animal that's been cut. So they are saying yes. So this covenant, now let's talk about this covenant from Galatians chapter 3. Galatians 3 on page 18. Yes, there I am. What do we learn about the law from Galatians?
The law was our guardian until Christ came in order that we might be justified by faith.
Okay.
Verse 24.
Okay, this is our guardian, this law guardian. Until when?
Until Christ came in order that we might be justified by faith.
Okay. Let's take it back to this, right? So we have this. Why was this added? Why was the law given?
Because of sin.
Because of
Sin.
sin, because of sin, yes. It was given because of sin. Why is that significant?
To guard us until Christ comes.
To guard us, okay? So,
Oh, yeah,
without,
sorry.
without the law, then what? How would people know?
Yeah.
Okay?
It's a guide.
Yeah. So the law is like this. Stay right here until faith comes.
Until you can get it.
Right, right.
Before-
What else do we learn about this law from Galatians? Anything?
It did not annul the covenant.
Okay. It did not annul the covenant. Which covenant? This one, okay? It doesn't change. God is still going to do this, okay? But the law is given because of transgressions, because of sin, to keep you on the path, to lead you to Christ when he comes, to be your guardian, to protect you until Christ comes.
The law cannot give life.
Thank you. The law cannot give life. Can you be saved by obeying the law? No, no. It cannot give life. What gives life? How are you saved?
By blood.
By faith.
The blood of,
By faith
by the blood of Jesus.
in the blood of Jesus, right. Right, so this law, it cannot give life. Is this permanent?
No.
No, you're so confident, no. Okay, you're right. You're
Because
right.
Christ came to fulfill that law.
Okay, because there's a new covenant, right? There's a new covenant, and what does that look like? And that you're going to find in Jeremiah 31 and in Ezekiel on page 1819. What does this new covenant look like? Who is it made with? God makes it with who?
Yeah.
Why are we laughing?
My phone went off.
Oh, your phone, okay. Was it the answer? Did you have the
No,
answer?
I never did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is this covenant with?
Was it the house of
What's that?
Israel?
Is it just Israel?
And Judah.
Believers.
Okay, yeah, believers. What did you see in Galatians 3 about who are the children of Israel?
Those who are circumcised, where is that?
Those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham.
Right. Those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham.
Those that are in Christ.
Okay, right. It's not just Israel. Okay, it's those who are believers by faith, who are children of Israel, of Abraham. Okay, so
But it specifically said that it would come to the Gentiles so that we might receive the promised Spirit through faith.
yeah, in Galatians 3,
Pardon?
in Galatians,
In
yeah,
Galatians,
right,
yeah, verse 14.
right. Verse 14, Galatians, it will come to the Gentiles. Is that good news?
Yeah.
And if you get your inheritance because of the law, then it's law, it's not a promise, but God gave the promise.
Right. Right. So you can't get the inheritance of eternal life, right, through the law. It comes because of the promise that God gave here. Then he said, I will not, cannot break this. This is what you're going to get. Okay. And through you, all the nations will be blessed. All the nations. Gentiles, Jews, everybody. Everybody. So tell me about this new covenant. What does that look like? Jeremiah. within our hearts. What else?
It'll be written on our hearts. It will be, he will forgive us and not remember our sin anymore.
What else?
I will be their God and they will be my people.
I will be their God and they will be my people. What about Ezekiel?
Remove our hearts of stone.
Okay, the heart of stone is removed. Okay. A new heart, a heart transplant, yes. Okay. Remove the heart of stone. What else does Ezekiel say about this?
It's an obedient walk, that will walk and obey.
Okay, and how are we able to walk in
By the
obedience?
Spirit.
Yeah,
The
God
Spirit
has put
will
his
be within
spirit.
us.
Okay, God will put his spirit within us. Okay, spirit within us. And help us to walk in obedience. Anything else that you learned about this new law, the new covenant? What does Luke 22, 19 and 20 say about this covenant? The new covenant. On page 18.
20.
20?
22, 19,
Oh, what did I say, 20?
Yeah.
Luke 22, 19 to 20.
I've got, this is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you.
Okay. The new covenant is in which blood?
Christ.
Christ.
Okay, the blood of Christ. Mary, that's where you were going, right? So you have the blood here with the animals, you have the blood here in the covenant, and you have now the blood of Christ as the blood of the covenant. Okay. Pretty cool. What is the new covenant's relationship to the old one?
Can't be broken.
It can't be broken? Okay.
It replaced the old one.
Are you talking, wait, sorry.
Okay,
We're-
okay, yep.
I thought you were talking about
No.
Abraham's covenant.
Okay, it replaces the old covenant. Replaces it. Because this one had conditions to it. The people had to obey, right? Did they? No, they broke this. They broke this covenant. Because it's impossible, right? It's impossible. What did you learn in the cross references about if you live by the law? Yeah, you're under the curse of the law because you have to obey every bit of it. Every bit of it. But with the new covenant, it's like not on tablets of stone, but it's in our heart. And it's forgiveness, and it's the blood of Christ, and it is the Spirit within us to help us. Okay, so this covenant, does this have an end to it? No, this has no end. This one has an end. This one does not. This one is forever. Because God is going to fulfill all of that. And this one has no end either. So whoever believes,
Yes. It's conditioned on our belief.
yeah, conditioned on the belief. If we believe in Jesus Christ, then this is what we have. And the end of that is eternal life. Can the law do this? Absolutely not. It was just there to keep people in check until this comes. Does that, okay, Paul says, I think in Galatians, that he says the law was my tutor to keep me in check until faith came, okay? So does this work for us? How does this work for us today? Before you're saved, what happens to you? What are you? I'm not asking good
Lost in
questions.
sin.
Yeah. But see, this came because of transgressions. It came so that you would know what is a transgression.
Right. You had to have a measuring stick. Right?
Yeah, the measuring stick, okay? And then the law says, stay right here so you're not out there with all these other consequences.
Preventing
Okay.
grace.
Right. See, and that's where I was for a long time in church. I was right there, living according to the law, what God said, how to live. That's where I was for a long time, until finally one day, the gospel just took hold, okay? And I didn't need this anymore. So now I'm over here, living by faith, okay?
And you do many of the things trying to keep us on the straight and then you do it because you love God so much.
Right,
But
right,
it's not because you're trying to earn.
right.
It's just that you don't want to murder people because.
Yeah,
you
that was the
love
last to go
God,
for me,
you know?
yeah.
And you just don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because
Some-
Jesus
yeah.
did
No,
great things
you're right.
for me. But
Because
it's
the
not
Spirit-
just because it's wrong. It's
Right,
just
but not, yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
because I
Not-
want to honor the
right.
Lord.
Now you want to honor, before so that I have to do this so that I can get to heaven, but that doesn't get you there, But once you're there, then you want to.
I had a conversation with the teacher today. She was gonna go speak to the counselor because the kid had lied and he hadn't done the assignment and then he took somebody else's paper and he cheated. And the counselor said, well, that's not really a lie. He learned what he was supposed to learn, didn't he? He learned the information. Isn't that what you wanted him to have, is the information? And she said, stealing somebody else's work and then lying about saying, I
Yeah.
did it, and then having the audacity to say, let me present. And she said, but the counselor said, well, why is this a concern?
Yeah.
But that's what I started to say, that too often, we have, not we, but others have the thing, the old law, the old covenant does not exist. Right? Because we serve a God who is loving
Yeah.
and gracious
Yeah.
and forgiving. And so they're trying to get there without the other, like,
Right. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying.
okay.
The law is
But
in
the
place
law-
to keep us, to point us to the gospel. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that's, last September, the core cadet lessons, it was preventing grace, saving grace, and sanctifying
oh, I
grace.
remember that.
And that's
Yeah.
like, people going, what is this, you know, convenient grace? No, it's
Right.
prevenient grace. And that's the law that presents us, so we know what's right and what is wrong, you know?
Yeah,
So
And
I was reading something that was talking about, we're gonna be surprised when we see Satan and Jesus walking hand in hand in eternity, because God is loving.
oh, yeah,
So we just have to be so
Right.
careful in what we teach
Right.
and what we hear
Right.
and what we believe.
yeah,
Well, because also the law became, while it is a guide, it became very corrupt. And so then we look at it as something bad, even though it was something that Jesus came to fulfill.
right. We talked about that in another course, right? People look at it like it's bad, but it's really good, right?
But we look at it because people turned it into something
Yeah,
corrupt, because the Pharisees took it
yeah,
to a level that it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
And it became shackles as opposed to guidance.
And Jesus says he came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it, to fulfill it, okay? And this is kind of when I wrote that X, I'm like, that could create an issue, okay? Because it's not that this doesn't exist anymore. The new covenant replaces it. This is what will happen, replaces it, but you still have this to lead people. People who are still unsaved, are still here. So the law, it's not necessary anymore. It's not necessary because you have this, but it still
This
exists.
is not my righteousness. The middle one isn't what makes me right.
Right,
and makes
right.
me-
It only leads you to righteousness. Right, right,
Never made us righteous.
right.
It never made the
Yeah.
children of Israel righteous, but it kept them in a line. It was the
Set apart.
But
Right.
many of the things in the middle one are totally fulfilled on the right because you do it from a different heart.
right.
Mhm.
It's a different heart that.
Yeah. But until you get that new heart, you're still here.
Right, until you can get it.
Right.
Ezekiel 36, that was one of the ones we had to look up. So I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. So he's still referring to the
Yeah, be
law.
careful to keep my laws,
The
right,
Holy Spirit is within me.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's because here, like, you want to honor God. You want to honor God. And these are the ways that you do it, the 10 Commandments and all the laws of God. So, but they can't give you life. But you will still do those. I'm not going to murder anybody. Probably not.
And it is a law.
Right. So it's not, this just isn't necessary anymore once you have the new covenant, but it's still necessary for those unbelievers who need to be kept in check by some boundaries until they can be led to faith. So yeah, we can't just have people out there doing whatever they want because God is love.
Because even Paul warned people about that. Because even Paul asked the question, is that because Jesus is gonna forgive us, does that mean we need to keep on sinning? And
Right,
Paul, the
right.
answer was like,
Like,
no.
yeah, no.
Right? I think it's that danger, like, because that Jesus is gonna forgive doesn't mean you have to keep on sinning and sinning and sinning. So it's that
Yeah.
balance.
So without the law, we wouldn't
Yeah.
maybe know what sin
Yeah.
is.
So we still need to know
So
what
the
sin
law
is
is-
and that.
Is a teaching tool of what it's, I think they go, the first, thou shalt have no other gods, that's never gonna go away.
Yeah.
And second, no idols, that's not gonna go away. But we're not so good with, number 7, infidelity. And we, who is it? It's Ken Ham, Ken Ham, he always sits on a plane and says, hey, have you ever taken anything? Sure, I've taken something. So have you ever lied? Well, doesn't everybody lie? Well, have you ever lusted after a woman? No. And he said, how can I believe you? You are a lying thief.
Oh,
So
yes,
now how can I
right,
believe
right.
you?
How do I believe
And
you?
then he
Yes.
gets into the gospel, but, because they, sometimes we take the law and make it work for us as we do grace and make it work for us and allow us to.
Right.
We know he will forgive, so if I choose to live in this, but he says in Romans, no, stop sinning.
Yeah. This doesn't give us a license.
Does not give us a license.
Does not
to
give
sin.
us a license to do whatever we
But
want.
is that almost kind of like
Right.
a little bit cultural today, that it does give
Yeah.
many people
Right.
the
Right.
license?
That's what you were getting at, I think. It says
Right.
people think they can just do because God is love. No, God is still a just God,
Don't think I'll see the.
okay? And the story still ends the way it ends, okay?
It doesn't change God's character.
No, and if it
no.
did, then let's close our books and go home.
Yeah. So he's still,
Because that breaks then, if his character changes, then that covenant number 1 will not last.
right. And Jeremiah spoke to that about if the order of things change, if the order of the sun rising and the moon rising, if any of that changes, then God can then the people can cease to exist.
Oh,
That's pretty solid. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So this is going to happen.
and it was interesting, I was doing the study of First and Second Chronicles, and all those lists of people,
Yeah.
and then one resource said it's because they want to make sure they're connected to the Abrahamic covenant. People of that line want to make sure because they do not want to miss out on that.
Right.
The
Well,
land,
yeah.
the blessings.
And Matthew 1 gives that Jesus' genealogy goes back to Abraham. You know, and then I love that genealogy because then it starts with Abraham and then it ends with Jesus Christ, the Messiah. You know, so and that's this. You looked at that through this. This is Christ, right?
Yep.
Right.
So from Abraham to Christ, this is what happens. Okay. All the way back from when God said that to Abraham. What, 25 years ago?
And maybe Isaac, when he took Isaac to the mountain, he
Yeah.
had no, you know, that always like,
Yeah.
it's a hard passage for me.
Yeah.
Because my faith is not that, but did he
Yeah.
take him knowing full well that this covenant had been made
Right.
and it would never, ever be broken, and Isaac hadn't had offspring
Right.
yet?
When he said this, and he said, do not fear, the beginning of this chapter, do not fear. Your reward will be great. I am your, what did it say? I am your,
Great reward.
what was the word he said?
Shield.
Shield. Yeah, I am your shield. Yeah. This is going to happen. So, Abraham, you can count on it. And you're right. By the time it gets to 22, and we're going to be there soon, yeah, he's remembering this. This cannot change. Can't change. So, it's just a matter of, you know, where are we? I mean, like I said, for a long time I was here in the church. We have people here. We have people here in the church. We do.
Amen.
Many, probably more than we want to know. But this is where they need to be. So we need to be careful about how we need to be, not careful, but we need to be bold about how we proclaim the gospel. Because we can't ignore the fact that in our own core buildings, we have people that are right here. They're right there. And this cannot give life. Yeah. So have conversations with people. You know, there's no point talking about the Cubs anymore. But we can talk about Christ, right? Have conversations with people about this. You understand this, so let's just go out there and share it. Thank you. Great discussion.